Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John's reports for the 17th of August. ES continuing its slide, actually breaking below 50%. A little bit of a surprise there, but this was the key. That meaning of DOC, cyan, short-term buyers in green. In steel, midterm buyers in green. And when the two of those meet, we look for a rejection. That rejection usually gives you a momentum move towards the direction, and it was to the short side. NBI white, even with the fade in it, still no buyers wanting to jump into this. Shakeout continuing to break down, and the rising 0% usually pulls price down towards that 50% was the expectation. Now that it's done that and filled all the positive extremes, sky's the limit. But realistically, any improvement in the magenta that will give a little bit of support to it, but definitely vulnerable at this particular stage. From an NQ standpoint, it was always weaker in the beginning from the shakeout, and we just talked about this one yesterday, the orange DOC being caught between cyan and red. When that happens, you've got a continuation move. It was starting to look more positive with the dip in orange, but I pointed out a spike back up would be a death knell, and sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Pushing back up and making the 23% very likely in this particular case for the NQ. So it's going to be a nice back and forth for that one. Treasuries still not catching a bit of unusual, because usually when you get selling like this, people flock to safety. In this case, no, they just realize that inflation's not under control and there are rising costs everywhere, and the Fed is not going to change course. So definitely an improvement in yield. So why do you want to be in any other currency than a dollar at this particular stage? You're getting your highest returns. From an oil standpoint, just breaks below that 80 handles. That's helpful, but it's going to have to stay there a while. And geopolitical situation, the Gulf, Baltic Sea, there's a lot of potential nightmares, scenarios going on there, and it's problematic. Now, will changes in the economic environment start to reduce the amount of oil consumption needed? Not enough yet at this particular stage, so that's something to watch. But we are seeing more troubling signs on the economic forefront. Euro, why would you be in a euro when you can be in a dollar and get a far better yield than anything the ECB is offering? That's a different issue. It's arbitrarily been held up quite a while. That short covering rally that they had in the early part of July here, not holding up. So the fade back continues. From a gold standpoint, gold typically will take a little bit of a beating, when people are liquidating that to cover market situations, especially if they want to buy in dips. But it's been particularly ugly. So, and we talked about the control you have with the paper market versus the actual real deal. But certainly creating a discount hasn't turned to a buy yet. But inflation's not going away anywhere, so it's an interesting thing to see it fade. Bitcoin and them broke below 50% line there with that NBI white lead, and magenta has not turned over yet. So once it reached that strong DOC split point right there, really started to put pressure on it. 50% was likely to hold when we were starting to see a little improvement in the DOC, but no, complete fade. And once it broke support there, still has ways to go. You get this positive extreme all the way down to the 27K mark. ETH had already broken down on that one. This was the positive extreme from there, so it's already filled it, and literally a lot weaker, breaking all the way down to the 38%. So you're not seeing a whole lot of improvement. You get the orange dipping back in, but all it's doing is dipping back in between red cyan. Yes, it's lowering. That should be enough to give it some support, but not a great sign. So this is a concern that has been growing in a lot of the crypto, that national governments will ban them just outright, simply if they're planning to create their own digital currency, which we always knew would be an eventuality. But there's always going to be a market, so to speak, worldwide for a Bitcoin kind of thing that will be outside government jurisdiction. So the question is, you'll be criminal if you try to own it, unless you're playing the futures as opposed to the actual Bitcoins, but that sort of defeats itself. That's why we've always talked about it as just a speculative security situation. From an ES standpoint, you can see where we started that breakdown a couple days ago, and we literally have not closed above the 23% yet. So until that happens, that's why that's all red. So it just keeps doing it. And MBI White still leading on that. These little pops of magenta give it enough little bit of spark to push back up. But as we've talked about, when you get orange DOC caught between cyan and red, that's a continuation pattern. And all we've been doing is a little bit of side and down, and that's what we've been continuing to do. So working out just as expected. When we go to the full tight intraday, morning started out with a nice little pop as usual, and then just the selling took place from the moment of the open. They tried to fight it back, but at the end of day, just liquidation again. And that was something we've been seeing on the NASDAQ, not so much on the ES, and it started to pick up a bit more on the ES. You can see in pre-market, they fought to pull back up, but equivalent, really, only attempting to get back to the 23% from the end of day sale, and that faded back pretty quick too. So there's just plenty of people willing to sell at this particular stage with not too much buying interest. So it'll go too far and we'll get a bounce back and everyone will be excited again. But overall, these readings are still net negative. We'll continue to follow it along. As always, trade well though. Talk again later. See you on the Skype chat.